When I think of Dr. John Jacob, who's been a tremendous mentor to me and to many others, I think of somebody who's pulled off a really hard hat trick. He's a great scientist, a great communicator, and a great mentor. There are many people in this community who know Dr. John Jacob and have been inspired by his work. There are others who don't know him, but they know his work because he passed the torch on to others who passed the torch on to those people who are loving and saving nature for both biodiversity and for the people who deserve it. So it is an easy thing for me to remember some of my best experiences with John, either out in the field, exploring prairie wetlands, organizing conferences like the People in Nature Conference back in 2015, hearing talks and seeing Texas Master Naturalists and others absolutely enthralled and inspired to go out and do something to change the world, or just having dinner and communing and sharing big ideas at restaurants or at our houses. So it is an amazing and wonderful and necessary thing that Bayou City Waterkeeper is giving John this spotlight and this honor. Without people like John, our whole region would be impoverished, both naturally and culturally. And so we're very excited to see him honored in this way. Thank you.
Welcome to Bayou City Waterkeeper, Folks N Oysters. My name's Vanessa Hamilton, and I served on the board of directors for Bayou City Waterkeeper for many years. And I was very fortunate to be on the founding board with John Jacob. It was a real pleasure to be with him. I've known John a long time, even before Bayou City Waterkeeper. Luckily, John Jacob was introduced to me by my mother, Faye Dedney. She was very local in the League City Garden Club, and he would often do lectures and educational presentations in the area, and that's how she got to know him. Later, I heard John speak on prairie potholes and Nema mounds. His comparison of our gentle rise of elevation in a Nema mound to the Grand Tetons was pretty funny. He always said Nema mounds are not very sexy, not like the Grand Tetons. And that kind of just always stuck with me, his wonderful sense of humor in presenting things that sometimes are controversial or pushing people to see things in a new way. So I would just like to kind of speak to John himself and say what deep gratitude I have for him that he chose to be a part of Bayou City Waterkeeper in the early days when we were really just trying to get our nonprofit established and get our names out there and begin our own sphere of influence. And he was someone who had a great deal of influence. You are, John, a person of great deal of influence, not only through your job through the Coastal Watershed program with Texas A&M, but really when I saw how much influence you had was when we were opposing the expansion of the Houston port into Bayport. And there you brought forth the science, and that was really it was a large part of the defense, why we were opposing that expansion. So you brought that influence to this organization. And I found out how much integrity you had, how much passion and excitement you had about wetlands, because you said, yeah, I'll come on the board, but only if wetlands is a big issue. And you have that, as I got to know you better, that is your integrity. You have as much passion for wetlands as you do for your faith and your family. And you're not somebody that goes to work and has on one hat and then goes home as another. You're always that same person. And you brought that to the board. You led us in some really difficult times. getting started and then really kind of expanding our horizons. So I thank you very much for all you've done for our organization and for our communities, our bayous and our wetlands. And I'm really happy for you that you're in Guatemala. I miss seeing you around, but thanks for everything you've done.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful Folks N Oysters, and I'm really honored to be here tonight to help celebrate and honor Dr. John Jacob. I was first introduced to John when I was working in Louisiana on protection efforts for our coastal wetland system in the region. And he was known across Southern Louisiana and the Gulf South as the person to talk to learn all you needed to know about wetlands. I absorbed his research and his teachings in my efforts to better understand our Louisiana wetland system and how to best protect them in the regulatory environment that we had in Louisiana. And little did I know, a few years later, I would be moving back to Texas and I would have the immense pleasure to work alongside him. Working with John for the betterment of our coastal prairie wetlands was a rich and wonderful learning experience. Importantly, as Bayou City Waterkeeper enters into its 20th year, John's vision was instrumental in building the foundation for the organization and bringing people into Bayou City Waterkeeper that would be important advocates for the Galveston Bay watershed and the greater Houston-Galveston area. The passion and commitment that he brings to the Galveston Bay watershed has shaped how organizations across the region approach the important work of living and working with nature. Our wetland systems are so integral and to the health of our communities, and John really helped to shape that narrative. It's been really wonderful to see his work being celebrated and his long efforts being lifted up into policy that is being implemented here in our region. And as John likes to say, he is a speaker for the wetlands and its grasses and its soils that make up Galveston Bay. And likewise, his message carries through the many lives that he's touched along the way. And so I'll close this evening to just say thank you, John, for being a passionate advocate and an inspiration. I'm excited to continue to see how you shape and work with Bayou City Waterkeeper and all the things you have left ahead of you.
I first met John recently in this past year through Bayou City Waterkeeper, but I've known of his work for some time through my previous job at Houston Botanic Garden, where he was responsible for building the stormwater wetlands while at Texas A&M. One of the things that really resonates with me is John's perspective on naming, understanding the importance of being able to identify, name, and connect to something, and then advocate for it. Recently, I've learned of the indicators of wetlands, being able to see and identify soil, hydrology, and plants, indicator trees in wetlands, such as a willow oak. He makes the science come alive through generous collaboration and understanding the interdisciplinary lens by which we must work to protect our watershed. He's been really critical to our team and a vital resource. His work as a board member earlier in the history of the organization and later with Jen Powis as they established the science and law houses needed to effectively move our policy, especially around wetlands and clean water, is something we're really proud to build upon. He also brings a nuanced understanding of people and culture, being bilingual, seeing class, ethnicity, and race in the people we advocate for, along with the environment. I feel he is certainly a perfect candidate to honor during this milestone year, as we reflect on 20 years of Bayou City Waterkeeper and how we've shifted policy and protected our waterways through science-based advocacy, critical legal work, and education. Now we look forward to 20 more years, and we're really happy to have John on our advisory board and to continue to guide us.
Thank you all so much for joining us here at Folks N Oysters tonight as we celebrate a legacy around wetlands and water quality. John has been a friend for many, many years, and I can still remember when he asked me to initially serve on the board of Bayou City Waterkeeper. At the time, we talked a lot about combining law and science in creating a strong advocate for cleaning up the waters in our region and on saving more land, and particularly in saving wetlands. And so thank you, John, for all your hard work. Thank you for helping me become a part of it. And thanks to Bayou City Waterkeeper in continuing this legacy.
I can't think of a better person to honor for Bayou City Waterkeeper's 20th anniversary than John Jacob. John, your vision and your expertise has shaped all of our work these last 20 years and continues to be integral to everything that we do. Personally, I'm indebted to you for everything you've taught me. I first learned about wetlands and prairie potholes and pimple mounds from you when I was a master naturalist student, and I've continued to learn so much from you out in the field and also more recently over Zoom over these last 3 years with the organization. I appreciate your mentorship and your friendship. Muchas gracias para todo.
Hello, I'm Claudia G. Vassar, the president of the Houston Botanic Garden, and I'm standing in front of our stormwater wetlands. We are so excited to have this as a feature in the garden, and John Jacob was an incredible visionary behind these wetlands in making them a wonderful feature of the garden that we can offer to the public to see how wetlands function in Houston. I can't say enough wonderful things about John and his passion for wetlands. When we first met him, he was the one who had the idea and the drive to ensure that these wetlands became a reality at the Houston Botanic Garden. He is an expert in Houston, sharing his knowledge and wisdom, and more than anything, his complete enthusiasm about ensuring that we have great resiliency and are informed and prepared for the impacts of water in Houston. So these wetlands have been installed through the work of his team and their design efforts so that we can showcase how wetlands function. So as the public come to visit the garden, they can see how water is filtered through the plants in the wetlands before it re-enters into our water system. And we can also see how beautiful wetlands are so that they're not this scary thing, but this really wonderful, beautiful asset that we have in our city. These wetlands are such a wonderful place here in the gardens. It's a place where you can pause and really listen to and absorb the incredible beauty of the ecosystem of the wetlands. We are so grateful for John, for his vision, for what this city can be, for how we can take care of our land and water, and how we can be incredible stewards for our city and for this planet. Thank you, John, for all that you are doing, for all that you did here at the garden, and for all that you're doing across Houston. We are ever so grateful.